Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is December 9th, 2024. This is episode 347. Oh man. I'm getting close to that 365 mark, representing a year of podcast episodes. This is stand-up comedian, actor, improviser, and dreamer Paul Green, coming to you, sharing my journey as I pursue my dreams in the hopes that you will pursue yours. Well, I am recording this from Las Vegas, or in Las Vegas, Nevada. Although 5 hours ago, I was in Simi Valley, which is just north of Los Angeles, California. So I have been road warrioring it up. It's actually been a month of road warrioring, starting back at Thanksgiving when I drove to LA and then drove to New Mexico, then back to Phoenix, and now I'm back to LA, to Vegas, to Salt Lake, back to Phoenix. That's a lot of driving in just 3 weeks' time. But I was in Simi Valley headlining a very huge show, one of the biggest shows I've ever done. Just a huge opportunity. I performed for about 25 people in the back room of a Dennys in Simi Valley. You know, people told me it would never happen. They said, Paul, who do you think you are to think that one day you'll be headlining in the back room of a Dennys? And I said, just you watch me. Just you watch. It'll happen one day. I don't know when. I don't know how long it's going to take. But you'll see this dame on a flyer taped on the inside of a glass door, which is the entrance to the Dennys in Simi Valley, California. I did it, everybody. So, let's talk about this show. So, overall, I think it went okay. This is one of those situations to where I'm probably overly hard on myself. Or maybe I'm not really able to accurately determine how well I'm doing in each moment because it's so intimate. I mean, it was literally like just sort of this back kind of walled off room in the back corner of this Denny's. It wasn't enclosed. It was like an open room, but there was a wall with maybe about a 6-foot opening, and there was maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tables. So there was like one really long table, and then maybe like 5 other kind of smaller tables. But it was a really small space, and the guy who produced the show just brought in a little portable speaker and a microphone and just set it up in front of the wall. And I was literally doing comedy to 2 people who had their backs to me, eating right in front of me. And when I mean right in front of me, I mean they were probably 2 feet from the wall. No, they were maybe 3 feet from the wall and maybe 2 feet from me, because we're literally standing right with our, with our back to the wall of this room. And so I'm sitting here trying to do comedy. I mean, I'm literally like talking into this guy's bald spot because they didn't turn around. They were just sitting at their table eating their salads. It was so bizarre. And, the good news is, I mean, it was actually packed. Like, when I say packed, I mean, the room probably only fit, gosh, all right, I could probably remember how many people there were if I just count, because there was that few and it was so intimate that I remember them all. So the big long table right in front of me, there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think there was 11 people at this kind of big table. And again, they're like, when I mean right in front of me, I mean right in front of me. Like, I literally could have reached out with my hand and put my hand on the guy's head who was sitting right in front of me with his back to me. So there was probably 11 at that table, 4 at that table, so 15. I think there was 3 at the next table, 18. There was 3 ladies in that corner, so that was 21. And then 2, 23, maybe 27. And then there was some people who couldn't fit in there who were kind of on the side. Yeah, so maybe just under 30 people in this back room. And it's hard for me to really gauge because, in those situations, I'm pretty interactive. Like, it's just near impossible for me just to go up in that type of setting and just say jokes and not just be completely riffing with everything that's going on, because it's a Denny's. There's waitresses coming and going constantly, putting food down, drinks down, refills. And it's like when a waitress comes in, like half of the audience, because half of the 30 people all start looking at the waitress and they're trying to get their food. And it's like, I'm trying to do a stand-up comedy show. Plus, like, the lights are on, they don't turn the lights off. So it feels just way, way casual. And I have a tendency to go off script a lot and riff and make comments and just talk to the people, which in that setting invites them to talk back, which is not always good because now they're trying to be like, funny and snarky and obnoxious. And, that's been a big challenge that I've had to overcome, which is I love doing crowd work. I love being interactive, but audiences today are so much more vocal. You add an alcohol there, sometimes it can just really go off the rails, and you'll get audience members who are just like screaming like all on sentences at you. And you're just like, will you just shut up? It just totally disrupts the show. But when I am interactive, it invites it. So it's like I'm setting a precedent that, like, oh no, it's okay to just talk to the comedian because he'll talk back to you. And in some regards, it can be fun for the audience to see real impromptu, spontaneous conversations. And on the other hand, though, it can make it a lot harder for the comedian and potentially for the subsequent comedians to get through their material, because now the audience wants to interrupt and interject and try to throw in their 2 cents all the time. I remember I was hosting once at JP's in Gilbert when I was still hosting there. This was maybe 2 years ago. And I made a crucial error because hosts, first of all, should almost never, ever do crowd work. It's like the host job to welcome the audience, get the energy up, do some jokes so they get used to laugh, and do 3 or 4 minutes, and then get the heck off the stage, and then just keep the show running smoothly. And I had come out and I'm being interactive, and I start doing some crowd work, and it got the crowd so chatty that when I brought up the first comic, they could like barely get through their set because, again, I had set a very bad example, and I had kind of given the audience permission to be talkative. And so right after that first comedian, I went back up there, and I actually had to like shut the audience up and be like, and I literally said, everybody, I set a horrible example because I came out and I was talking to you, but please do not engage the comedian unless they ask you a specific question, but please don't heckle that. Like I had to like kind of scold the audience, but make it my fault, so that they didn't feel like, you never want to be rude or disrespectful to your audience. It's like, you never want to blame them, even though sometimes it's definitely their fault, but you're kind of in the customer service biz where it's like, if you're a server at a restaurant and somebody can be the biggest rude asshole and sends their money back or whatever, you still kind of have to smile and nod and be very friendly and just be like, oh my gosh, you are absolutely right. We just screwed this up. Let's take this to the back, So anyway, so at the Dennys show, I think I was a little too interactive, and I don't think it helped me. I think it hindered me, and I try to get a lot of material out. And they liked most of my material. Not everything landed, but it was also, again, very hard to keep everybody's attention, and it was a much older demographic, and a lot of my material is about dating and dating apps, and I just don't think a lot of them, like, they don't relate to it personally. I think they can relate to it by proxy, um, but yeah, I was kind of struggling up there, and I wasn't sure, and then after the show, a lot of people in the audience made a point to come over and talk to me and just tell me how much fun they had and how much they loved my comedy. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. That's good to hear. I'm realizing more and more just what a neurotic mess I am. And so, it's always nice to get a little validation after a show. So after the show, I packed up and then just hit the road immediately and got on my way to head to Vegas en route to Salt Lake City. And I saw something kind of interesting that just sort of sparked a couple thoughts. So I'm maybe 2 hours. I'm kind of like right smack in between Vegas and LA. So I've been driving about 2 hours. I got about 2 hours to go. And I'm on kind of a smaller highway. I haven't hit I-15 yet. And I'm in this very rural area. And, there's like no houses for miles. Or if there were houses, they were like big farm houses with like massive amounts of properties, but there was like tons and tons of space, like a half mile before the next house or whatever. And I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden up ahead, I see this like something that is just doused with Christmas lights. I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, why are there so many Christmas lights out here in the middle of nowhere? And as these Christmas lights get closer, I mean, it's like, there's like 5 or 6 trees, all like Christmas light lit up to the nines. I mean, like really tall trees. I mean, it's like somebody used a ladder or, purchased like a, one of those scissor lifts or something, because the lights were really high. And then I drive by and it's like, it was some sort of ranch house. But again, totally isolated. Like I'm not in a neighborhood. This is just out in the middle of nowhere. And this house, I mean, decked. And you know the types of houses I'm talking about, like that one house on the cul-de-sac, and, you can see it from the satellite can pick it up because it's so bright. Like that was the degree this house was decked out to Christmas lights, but it was out in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know, that just sort of sparked a little philosophy in me. And I was just thinking, sometimes that's what going for a dream feels like. It's this like, I am going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours dressing myself up in the most incredible Christmas lights display, but I'm out on this rural highway in the middle of nowhere, and almost nobody's going to see it. But some people will see it. And to me, I just thought about that homeowner, like how much pride and effort and love he put into decking his house out with Christmas lights, or her house. Sorry, didn't mean to be sexist there. Whoever the owners of the house were or are, just put so much work just for some guy like me who's just driving from Simi Valley to Vegas, and would never, it's like I hardly ever do that. And it wasn't like it was the I-15. This is kind of like an offshoot little highway, that eventually meets up to like the high traffic area. But I don't know. It just made me feel a certain way. And I just made a note of it. And I was like, that'd be interesting to sort of unpack why that had like an emotional impact on me, of just having this house out in the middle of nowhere, so fantastically decked out with Christmas lights. And I just kind of related to that, because it's like, man, is it so much work to go for your dreams. And there's so much failure and there's so much discouragement, but it's like, all you can do is just make sure that your Christmas lights look the best, and just do your best to try to get as many people to look at your fireworks display. Or sorry, not fireworks, you know what I mean? Christmas lights display. And I think that's just part of the dream, is just being willing to do the work anyway, being willing to take the time, being willing to be meticulous, and create that Christmas lights display for whoever may or may not see it, but to just respect the art and the process nonetheless. So yeah, those were my thoughts on the random Christmas tree or Christmas lights house out in the middle of nowhere. All right, everybody. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call this episode a little early. I know I have been breaking down Brene Brown's Power of Vulnerability, but I think this episode's about long enough, and I don't want to break into that. And I am exhausted because I have been driving so much the last couple of days, and I got a lot more driving to go. So I'm going to call it there, but thank you all so much for listening. I hope you're out there decking your house out with Christmas lights, metaphorically, whatever your dream is, and that you're finding joy and fulfillment as you pursue that dream. This is the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast for December 9th, 2024, episode 347. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow from Salt Lake City.